No, that's
Yeah.
backwards.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, don't be too radical with the microphone. Okay. Thanks everyone, and thank you very much for the invitation to come and speak today. I hope you all appreciate the fact that my opening slide does not contain a Banksia. You know, I'm a bit out there like that. Why am I here today? Well, I guess I'm going to talk to you a little bit today, a bit different from a lot of the other speakers who you've heard on today, which is really, I guess, about their experience and the science behind restoration. I've got a little bit of science, but I'm going to temper that with, I guess, a good understanding about what it is from a local government experience to manage Banksia Woodlands and to actually try and restore them. And believe it or not, local governments actually do undertake restoration projects, some more than others. Fortunately, the City of Cockburn has quite a strong ethos around this and quite a strong natural resource management focus, and so we're in a fortunate position to actually be able to do quite a bit of work in this space. We're also fortunate, I think, to be able to reach out to the scientific community, and a lot of the people in this room have worked with the City of Cockburn, if not directly, indirectly through working within sites that we also manage. So today I'm just going to give you a brief overview about the context, so where is Cockburn, what I mean by disturbance. I want to really talk about resilience today, and this is something that a lot of you I know will already be familiar with, and then look at a couple of case studies and just where I think we can see some opportunities. So the City of Cockburn pretty much sits right smack, almost bang in the middle of the Swan Coastal Plain. We do have some mapped Banksia Woodlands that fall under the current threatened ecological listing, but we also have some that are priority ecological communities and some that are just, wetland Banksia communities that may not form any particular sort of important or listed values. We also have a lot of very good quality wetland areas as well. So the city manages over 1,000 hectares of bushland. About 380 hectares of that is Banksia Woodland, and as I said, some is confirmed as the currently listed threatened ecological community. Most of them are located in this sort of area through here. Okay, there are some up here and some over here as well, and a little bit around here as well. So more, I guess, if you draw a line through the middle of Cockburn, you're looking more at the eastern districts. And actually, I noticed today a lot of, the work that Vanda's been doing and Karen Clark around Shirley Bella, that's right within the City of Cockburn sort of shire boundary. So the sizes is really typical of local government. Some of them are really small, 0.31 of a hectare. Why would you bother? I'll tell you why in a minute. Up to something as large as, I guess, 83 hectares. And the condition ranging is right across the board, from completely degraded and degraded right through to some small patches of excellent condition rating. So disturbance in Banksia Woodland, well, what does that mean? You guys know what disturbance is, and I think you probably are well and truly across the range of threats that we're faced with. Rabbits, tracks, weed invasion, dieback. Very interesting talk by Elaine around that stuff. Fire, and even, trotting tracks. And I guess this is what is unique about local government managed lands. We don't just manage for conservation. That would be nice, but it is not a reality. We are managing for a whole host of reasons, including passive recreation. There is a very strong demand in our community for access to these sites for a whole host of reasons. And they often have no understanding about the value of the bushland that they're moving through, other than it kind of looks pretty or it kind of looks crap, depending on who you talk to. So the Banksia Woodlands, and this was alluded to a bit earlier, which is actually really neat. So many things today have sort of fed into where I sort of want to have a chat about, which is connectivity, resilience, all this stuff. So a lot of the reserves in the City of Cockburn not only are small, but are fragmented. Now, this is not a huge distance, but is it too big a distance? And I think this is some of the questions where we're moving to now, is what are some of these critical thresholds in terms of viability for management, especially around Banksia Woodlands. If you have these isolated pockets, are they still going to function like they should? So resilience, and this is a term, and I'm not going to tell you how to, what's the turn of phrase, suck an egg or whatever, but the point about this is something actually that comes up a lot in climate change, and people who maybe haven't had much work in the climate change zone may be not so familiar with this concept of resilience, which is really the ability of a system to take a hit and not completely collapse overnight. So what can it handle? What kind of disturbance events can it endure and still persist and still actually function at some level? So there's a few levels, I guess, around resilience. Latitude, so how much can you change before you get to a threshold where there's just no recovery? Resistance, the ease or difficulty of changing. The precariousness, how close are we to the edge? And panarchy, so the degree to which a certain hierarchical level of an ecosystem is influenced by other things. This becomes more important with increasing isolation. So it's basically saying that things within an ecosystem, organisms within an ecosystem that becomes increasingly isolated will function in a different way from that's in a connected, more contiguous, larger ecosystem. And before I guess we get to how to achieve resilience, I guess we have to ask, well, why is it important? And I think that's some of the things we're hearing about today, about pollinators being able to move, seed production, the quality of the seed, where does it come from, is local better than being sourced from far away, all of these things. And these will all contribute to how resilient a system is when faced with a whole range of disturbance events. Now, we're seeing local disturbance events within the city, and we can see them right here and right now, but of course there's that more long-term disturbance events around climate change that we really don't know how to adapt towards. And even a question is, should we be? I mean, should we actively be involved in interfering? And it was great to hear Ziggy's talk, because as a land manager, I get approached a lot to do all sorts of novel things with our spaces, particularly around restoration. Because we are not a scientific body, we are not stringently governed by that. We can actually have a bit of latitude to play in the restoration space. And I have been approached on numerous occasions about planting northern sandplain Banksia species because they'll be better adapted in the long run, won't they? Yeah. Needless to say, I haven't actually done that. I'm not that keen on that idea, and I'll come back to that. So some focus, I guess, around connectivity, coherence within the floristic community. And should we just allow for a natural adaptation? So again, do we need to interfere? Are we better looking after what we've got, preserving that, giving that the best shot of adapting on its own? And I guess a lot of the management and restoration works that the city undertakes is to really support these objectives. So within a city or shire context, there's strategies everywhere. There's a plan for everything. They're not always adhered to 100%, and they're usually, in some cases, not adhered to at all. Great idea, lost on a shelf, who knows where. Fortunately, because I control what happens a little bit in the city, some of our management strategies are good, and we're trying to enhance them all the time. So we do have a natural area management strategy which really seeks to actually have restoration targets. So we actually have revegetation targets. We also have targets around what we think is most beneficial for the long-term longevity of our bushland, which is bushland condition. And the concept is that the better the bushland condition, the more resilient it will be, and therefore the better it will be in the long run. It also means it's cost less to manage overall. We've done some work with Renata Zelenova and the Southwest Group around producing a document called Establishing a Green Network, and this is really largely about looking at opportunities to better connect green spaces throughout the city. That is by far and away the most challenging aspect of working in a local government, and this is where your science hat has to come off and your planning or your people management hat has to come on, because people want facilities. You can't just say to them, no, you can't have a football oval, or no, well you can, but it doesn't always go over too well, housing developments, things like that. So we're trying to actively seek out opportunities and build on that. We've got a bushland conservation policy, and we also have landowner incentives as well. So through our landowner biodiversity grant, where we're actually trying to reach out to private landholders, because they're part of this story too, and that is a big unknown. When we talk about Banksia Woodland and we talk about connectivity and we talk about looking after these places and restoring these sites, private property, a lot of our Banksia Woodlands is actually contained within private property. Now, there is no governance for those people on how to manage their land. Some of them, really, it's a hassle. And I'll go on to say, things like fire are a massive challenge for them. They are deeply concerned about fire. And the message that they get sometimes from local governments are really conflicted. We say bushfire management, you must remove, clear spaces, but then in the next breath you've got people like me saying, oh no, conserve. We need to help these people out. You can't just say, oh well, good luck, you're on your own. And so we've established the Landowner Biodiversity Grant for several years now to try and develop a relationship with our local landowners, especially who have Banksia Woodlands. So I'm just going to talk about a couple of case studies today that do contain Banksia Woodlands, some to more or lesser extents. So this is Dennis DeYoung Reserve. It's an 83 hectare reserve that's out in Banjup. It's part of the Jandakot Regional Park, and it is a Bush Forever site. So one of the advantages of a local government, and one of the roles I think that local governments play, is we can't ignore the fact that they are sometimes very substantial landowners or land managers. They may not outright own the land, but they often have a management authority over it. And one of the things that I think local governments are trying to do better is understand what they've got in terms of what are they actually managing. So the city undertakes vegetation condition mapping, weed mapping and floristic community mapping, usually on a 4-year rotation basis. We do things like veldgrass control, so we do spray in these reserves. We do feral animal control. We install tracks and do dieback management. And we also, importantly, undertake revegetation. So Dennis DeYoung Reserve, which has also, I think, had some recognition as being a botanic park, is this beautiful, and for the city, quite a large parcel of land that has got Banksia Woodlands, and it's also got a few Melaleucas in there as well, a few Melaleuca communities. There was a very destructive fire through there in 2014. Previous presenters have shown you some photos of that. There was, veldgrass was throughout the reserve, but actually on quite a low level because it had been managed for several years. And one of the things that we've been trying to do is in areas where we have got a degraded patch, and there was an old trotting track within the reserve, that the city's actually actively undertaken some revegetation and fire photo monitoring. So there you've got some photo monitoring. This is all in conjunction with weed control. So this is not in the absence of weed control. It is with quite active weed control. And I guess the important message here is overall we've actually seen an improvement in the overall condition. So we've had a little bump up in some of these areas, and that's quite important. We also found a honey possum in there. I'm going to be super fast here. Bibra Lake, again, part of the Beeley Regional Park, contains some wetlands, Banksia Woodlands to the east, in through this block here. A lot, again, of weed control, revegetation, trying to connect the degraded spaces, and overall what we've seen, again, is an increase in the overall vegetation condition. The point is management pays off. If you actually go to this extent, you will get some benefits. I have to leave you now at threat of Julia, and I know her well, and the whip already hurts. Thank you so much.